We had another very choppy day in the market, but all of that will change going into tomorrow. Looking at the market today, like I said, it was super choppy and it was like a roller coaster basically all day long. But Tom, we actually have some pretty exciting earnings to go over and setups for tomorrow. So of course, make sure to stick with us to the end. At the end of today's video, we have a $2.1 million trade that you won't want to miss. But with that being said, Tom, let's get right into it.
Yeah, it was a very mixed day in the market. We did see some stocks move up. These uranium stocks like UUUU, CCJ, and other stocks like that exploded. And then we had other stocks sink down in a huge way, like Plug Power, PayPal, AMC, Beyond Meat, and others down over like 5%. This caused the market to get very choppy today. We actually even saw like Nvidia sell off in a pretty big way as well. And I feel like that we were very choppy today because of the huge inflation data coming out tomorrow. And Mike, going and looking at the chart right now, where it's looking like that they're expecting the inflation rate year over year to come in right around 5% to 4.9%. I'm really hoping it comes in lower than 5%. Anything around 4.9, 4.8, 4.7 would be fantastic, I think, for us. But it looks like they're expecting it to maybe stay the same, which I don't know how the market's going to react to that, especially considering that we've been seeing a continuous drop on these inflation numbers every single time that we've been seeing them report lately. So if they stay the same, I don't know if that's going to shock the market or not, but I definitely expect a lot of volatility out of the SPY. And with all this upwards movement lately, it just makes me scared that we might, drop back down a little bit.
See, the thing is like the market has been so choppy where I'm very excited for this data to release tomorrow. As you said, Tom, they're expecting the inflation rate to come in around 5%. And, that's still pretty high. But the thing is the inflation data and the inflation readings over like the past 1 to 2 years at this point have been some of the most important parts of the economic data release out of literally everything. So whether tomorrow is, you could say whether there's good inflation data tomorrow or bad inflation data tomorrow, I feel like one thing that's guaranteed is a pretty big move.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm really hoping that it comes in lower so that we can actually move up a little bit. But it's kind of worrying because we have stocks at huge points right now. Look at the QQQ. It is sitting on huge support right around 321. And we have a lot of big stocks like Nvidia and others also sitting right around big supports. I will say some of these big earnings tonight, Mike, really surprised me. I did not expect Airbnb to crash down this hard. They fell from 128 all the way down to 114 in after hours. And going over to some of their numbers here, they actually had record bookings, but it actually missed estimates. And, whenever you read through here, it just doesn't sound really good right now. They did say they were profitable in the first quarter with net income of 117 million compared with a loss of 19 million, a year ago. So that was actually really good to see in that sense. But, to see them actually miss on the bookings expectations are a little bit rough. And, that stock took a very bad tumble in after hours. That was a pretty bad move. And, Airbnb is one of those travel type stocks, Mike. I hope this doesn't bleed over into some of like the hotels and other, stocks in that type of sector.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in earnings season and we all know how earnings are. It's like you either see these stocks most of the time either blast up like we saw with Shopify and Palantir, or you see them crash down like we're looking at with Airbnb or even another stock today, Tom, PayPal. That thing got crushed today on earnings.
Yeah, it did. PayPal was down a ton early on, all the way down to 65.82. That was a huge sell-off there. We broke under that huge $70 support. And if we actually go out to that daily chart, PayPal made new lows of the year right here, Mike. This is terrible for them. Some of the numbers today, we look at the earnings right here, it looks like they actually came in positive, Mike. So look at that. It actually beat some of those estimates there ever so slightly. But, whenever you look at guidance and everything like that, that's kind of why they ended up falling off. And, PayPal was down this morning, but Rivian reported tonight. And I will say, Mike, out of all of the newer startups and all those smaller EV car companies out there, I'm very interested in Rivian. I actually like them a little bit more. Lucid actually tanked down with their earnings the other day. And at least for right now, It looks like they're coming back down a little bit. They're actually moving up, and they had a bunch of good numbers here that I saw. They're on track to meet their 50,000 vehicle production target for the year. And whenever you go ahead and read through here, the EPS actually came in better than expected because it's actually an adjusted loss per share. So keep in mind they were expecting them to lose 1.59 and they came in at 1.25. So that's actually better there in that case. And then that revenue beat too. So looking good for Rivian, Mike. And I'm really glad that they're on pace to meet that production target.
Yeah, so that is good. The biggest thing with Rivian stock is like it moves so much, and it's like when we look at the chart, like you said, Tom, like it's on the uptrend right now, which is good, and it is such a volatile stock. But for the options with this one, they're pretty aggressively priced, and I know that market makers are actually pricing in like a 15 to 16% move up or down, which is pretty big. The way I look at this stock right now is like, let's say tomorrow, you could say around market open, if we have like good inflation data come out and, Rivian's moving up with some good momentum, I would definitely be open to, riding that momentum and trading it higher. But at the same time, it's like, I'm going to be pretty selective to make sure the momentum is actually there. I don't want it just like slowly increasing because, it's not like the setup is what you can call like grade A at this second.
Yeah, exactly. Like not right now. It's nothing like like some of these bigger moves that we've seen over the past few days. I will say though, like Palantir, for example, like that one was a huge move last night. It fell down into open today and then started running back up into close. You can see even Palantir with the big move that they had, they could not really even continue. They could not even get above $10. Now, I think that they might be able to today, but it just goes to show that, these earnings plays can get extremely volatile. Now, I will say from open to close, Palantir was pretty good, but from last night to where we are now, it's pretty much the same. So it's just weird. These earnings have very volatile moves. And talking about earnings, Mike, there is so much more on the horizon. My favorite earnings play of the week, Disney reports tomorrow in after hours. Then we have Unity in after hours with Beyond Meat, TTD with the trade desk, and even Roblox before open. I heard a lot of people talking about Roblox today too.
Awesome. So like you said, we have a couple big earnings left, Disney being one of them for sure. But guys, don't just look at stocks that are about to report earnings. There's a ton of opportunity riding momentum after earnings as well. Whether it's like the Shopify setup from last week, they reported earnings and they just kept going, for days after, right? And there's many, many, many examples of setups like this. But, even if you look at, you could say a stock that reported earnings today in after hours, which is Upstart, UPST, this thing's up nearly 50% in after hours right now. So it's like, don't even forget about the stocks that already reported as well.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it's like, man, like they're up so much. It's like, can they really continue? But with these big earnings moves, they definitely can. Like, let's go ahead and look at that big play with Palantir today. Upstart's running up the way that they are right now, running all the way up to $21. Look at Palantir. They pulled back a little bit in pre-market, and then they actually opened up fairly low, and a bunch of buyers came in and started buying the stock all the way back up to that resistance throughout the day. That could maybe be even a good play on Upstart. Like if you see it maybe trend back down a little bit, start to bounce off support around open, and then you start to see some momentum, it could be a pretty good entry to the upside on some of those moves back up.
All right, there we go. Well, with that being said, Tom, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching very closely is Zoom. This stock had some great bullish momentum for a little bit intraday, and then it ended up selling off closer to market close. But there is definitely potential with this one tomorrow and even just throughout the rest of the week. They had some good news related to the telehealth industry and telemedicine services just to make the whole process just like easier and just faster. Either way, Zoom stock is at very, very low levels, relatively speaking, and it normally has some really good movement. So I'll definitely have a very, very close eye on Zoom to the upside, not only tomorrow, but throughout the rest of the week. One thing I really want to emphasize though is like, let's say inflation data just bombs tomorrow before open and the market starts crashing, then obviously, playing any stock to the upside at that point is not the smartest idea. So like I would prefer that the market is also moving up for this setup to work ideally.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Zoom's not very correlated to the SPY at the end of the day. It doesn't look like it anyways. And I know that, but you know, whenever you have big inflation data coming out, it's going to really override just about everything in the morning. So keep that in mind, like Mike said, of course, and keep that in mind with my next play as well, which is actually Boeing. This is another stock that will probably move quite a bit with that inflation data tomorrow morning, but they had some great news today with some orders from Ryanair. It looks like they're ordering 150 of Boeing's largest 737 MAX plane. This is good for Boeing. They're getting more orders on these MAX planes, and it drove in a lot of volatility today to the upside, especially early on. So I'm going to watch for this one with a big for a potential big continuation tomorrow. If we get above 202.50, I think we could use that as a big resistance. And if we actually go to the book map today, Mike, 202.50 was a bit of a large level, but you can see on the book map where there are a ton of sellers overhead. Look at these big red lines overhead here at 204 and 204.50. There were a ton of sell orders stacked up today right there. We have to watch that tomorrow morning. If we see those sellers come right back in there, that's going to be a big resistance to keep in mind if you're trading this one above 202.50. You know, you might not be able to trade this up to 206. We might have to watch out for another bounce around 204 like we had this morning. But man, Mike, this book map's been awesome for entries. And just like this morning, you know, you could see all those sellers coming in right up there.
I mean, look at that overhead, just selling pressure, just sitting there waiting on Boeing. Like you said, right around, I mean, there's a ton right around like 204 and like 204.50, and those sellers are just waiting. So it's like, those are two very important levels that basically everyone has to keep in mind for this stock going forward. And then like, even if you zoom out more, you can see there's, you know, even more selling pressure right around 205.
Yeah, exactly. So we have to keep in mind those overhead levels are going to be huge tomorrow. And if we end up breaking above those, that could be huge for a potential breakout, but it's going to be very tough with all those orders stacked there, especially on the first couple of hits. You know, if you see it hit and then maybe these orders start to disappear, then you can start to trade it up. And that's what's so awesome with Bookmap, Mike. Whenever these orders go away, you can actually see it. Like, see that big volume dot right there? How we had a bunch of sellers right at 204. We got that big hit on the dot, and then those sellers went away momentarily. And then we started trading back down. Then we had more sellers coming in at that level. But at that point, you know, it was a pretty good rejection, and those sellers, you know, got filled. So it's a pretty crazy thing, Mike. I love Bookmap. It's awesome. Check out the link down below, guys. And my next play, Mike, NVIDIA is actually using the book map as well. NVIDIA had a huge support today on the book map, right around 284 to 285. You can see a bunch of orders at 284 and 285. And if we go back out to the chart, go over to NVIDIA, you can see that intraday, that was the big area where we had a ton of bounces. So really watch 285 with NVIDIA. If we break under that tomorrow, I think there could be a great opportunity for puts.
Perfect. All right, another stock I'm watching pretty closely is CCJ. It's one of those uranium stocks, and this stock had a day. Basically, this stock kind of does whatever it wants, you know, relative to your classic big tech stocks like Apple or Microsoft or Tesla. But CCJ is actually in a great uptrend over it has been in a great uptrend over the past couple of weeks, and we're getting closer to that resistance between the range of $29.50 and $30. And I would not be surprised if we retest that resistance sometime soon.
Yeah, I would not either. That's a big resistance up there at the top. That $30 area is going to be huge. And I love CCJ, and I even like that other one, UUUU today. That's always the tongue twister one. They're so much fun to watch whenever they go on these big uptrends. And I know you've been loving CCJ, so to see it keep going up is awesome there. I'll definitely keep it on the radar too.
Perfect. Well, with that being said, let's get right into the momentum plays for tomorrow. With the first one, we have Palantir to the upside.
PLTR running back up with those earnings. You know, there's a big intraday resistance right around 970, but I think to be safe with this one, we need to see a solid break above $10. That was the big level in after hours yesterday. We never got back above it yet. So if we break above 10, watch for some big movement up. That's a huge psychological level too.
All right, with the next one, we are watching NVAX also to the upside.
Novavax, yeah, this one had a huge run with earnings. Talk about a potential continuation. Now, this one, it pulled back a little bit, so we don't want to really make it break the high of day. But if it gets above intraday resistance, right at $10, just like with Palantir, go ahead and watch it to the upside. Again, $10, such a big level.
Sounds good. With the next one, we are watching Microsoft to the downside.
MSFT, I'll say almost every big tech stock in the market right now, I feel like could fall down, especially with that big event tomorrow morning. Go ahead and watch for them to fall below 306, just under those wicks today.
Sounds good. So we have that downside level that Tom mentioned. If it breaks below that, we're watching it for puts. And then we are watching NVAX and Palantir to the upside as well. If they break those upside levels, we're looking at calls for them. And you guys know what time it is. It is time for the big money $2.15 million trade of the day. We are looking at none other than XBI. A lot of you guys are probably like, what is XBI? XBI is basically a bunch of biotechnology stocks all under one ticker symbol. It's a biotech ETF. So as those stocks rise, so does this. And it has been moving in a pretty big way lately, which is awesome. And more specifically on what this $2.15 million trade is exactly. It's essentially a call debit spread options trade. If it sounds complicated, I'll make it super easy. Essentially, someone's betting that this stock will rise. In order for this trade to be the maximum, or to, I guess you could say, reap maximum profits, it has to be at $95 or higher by June 16th of 2023. And at minimum, it has to be like $88 just to have like any value at all. But overall, it's a bullish play. Someone's betting that these biotechs are going to run. And Tom, I don't think it's a bad setup. What I do like is that biotechs and just the, biotech industry is an industry that does move on news and events quite a bit. And it also has that, I guess you could say, craziness to them, where it also just does whatever it wants compared to the overall market.
Yeah, exactly. There's some big swings with XBI here. I mean, look at these COVID moves. Pre-COVID, this stock was 80. It ran all the way up to 175, all the way back down around these big supports again, like 76 and 80. It's really cool to see this one starting to trade back up. And I think it's definitely on a pretty good uptrend here. So I like this play to the upside, and I like that it's a spread. I think that's very safe. If you guys are new to spreads, check out some of the videos that we have on spreads. They're pretty good. But Mike, other than that, it's a nice upwards play. If you guys aren't really into spreads or anything like that, maybe check out the 90 strike calls, or maybe to be safe, the 85 strike calls if you want to spend a little bit more. But either way, it looks pretty good. Just keep in mind, it is a little bit shorter term too. June 16th, they're looking for this to happen pretty quick. And in the short term, I feel like they could come up to retest 89 to 90 maybe if we get a good move.
All right, sounds good. Well, with that being said, Tom, I think we're set for a pretty exciting day tomorrow. We have some inflation data set to release, which is always very interesting to keep in mind, especially considering how crazy inflation has been over the past year or so. So hopefully that data comes in low. Hopefully we see some good moves tomorrow. Do you have any last minute thoughts before we close out?
Yeah, just one final thing I want to mention is just keep your eyes on GLD. I noticed gold took a bit of a move back to the upside today in the past few days. If this event tomorrow goes south, gold might go back on the uptrend. I think that inflation causes a lot of fear, and that could be a pretty big move for gold. So just keep metals and even some of those inverse ETFs on the market in mind, like SPXS and UVXY.
Perfect. All right. Well, last but not least, I want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, which is Pangstrom Jr. in the StockedUp Discord. You've been in the chat for a couple months now, and your activity has definitely been growing over this past month, and you had some pretty awesome profits yesterday. So keep it up, and huge shout out to you. But Tom, besides that, I think we're set for a very exciting day tomorrow. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And besides that, let's have an amazing rest of the week.